What if I told you that the very thing you've been working hardest to develop, your competence, your expertise, your mastery, might be the exact reason you're invisible to the women you're actually interested in? I know, that sounds insane. Your whole life, you've been told that excellence matters, that if you just get good enough at something, your career, your craft, your skill set, people will respect you. Women will notice you. Opportunities will come. But here's what nobody prepared you for. The data tells a completely different story. Welcome to Primal Mind. I'm your host, and today we're diving into something I call the competence paradox, a brutal, research-backed reality that explains why the most skilled men often struggle the most in modern dating, and more importantly, what you can actually do about it. This isn't another just be confident bro video. This is evolutionary psychology meeting brutal honesty. So if you're someone who's poured years into becoming excellent at what you do, but you're confused why that doesn't translate into romantic success, this episode is for you. Let's start with the story. I was consulting with a 32-year-old software engineer. We'll call him Marcus. Senior position at a Fortune 500 company, six-figure salary, published researcher. The guy had built systems that millions of people use every single day. On paper, absolute catch. In reality, he hadn't been on a second date in 2 years. Marcus told me something I've heard dozens of times. I thought if I just became successful enough, women would naturally be interested. But it's like I'm invisible. Meanwhile, my friend Jake, who sells insurance and plays in a cover band, has women constantly interested in him. What am I doing wrong? Here's the thing. Marcus wasn't doing anything wrong. He was doing exactly what society told him to do. The problem? Society lied. Because here's the uncomfortable truth that evolutionary psychology reveals. Competence and attraction operate on completely different systems in the human brain. Let me explain. Human beings evaluate each other through two distinct cognitive systems, and this is where everything falls apart for highly competent men. System 1 is immediate and visceral. It's the limbic system, your emotional, survival-oriented brain. This is the system that generates attraction. It responds to things like social proof. Who else wants this person? Pre-selection. Are other women interested? Emotional impact. Do they make me feel something? Status visibility. Can I see their value immediately? Behavioral cues, confidence, body language, vocal tone. System 2 is analytical and slow. It's your prefrontal cortex, your logical, planning brain. This is the system that evaluates compatibility. It responds to things like career stability, intelligence, long-term potential, shared values, competence in complex domains. Now here's the brutal part. System 1 activates first, always. In dating contexts, System 1 decides whether someone even gets considered as a romantic option. System 2 only kicks in after attraction has already been established. And here's where the competence paradox emerges. Your expertise lives almost entirely in System 2 territory. The fact that you're a brilliant engineer, a skilled craftsman, a talented analyst, that's all System 2 value. It's invisible to the initial attraction mechanism. Meanwhile, Jake, the insurance guy who plays guitar, he's triggering System 1 constantly. He performs on stage, social proof plus status visibility. He's surrounded by other people having fun, pre-selection cues. He creates emotional experiences. Music hits the limbic system directly. His social circle is diverse and active, demonstrates social competence. Marcus, in his office solving complex problems that 99.9% of people can't even understand. Invisible to System 1, high value to System 2, but nobody gets to System 2 if System 1 doesn't activate first. This is the competence paradox. Now, you might be thinking, this seems like a terrible design. Why would evolution create a mating system that doesn't reward actual competence? Great question, and the answer is, it does reward competence, just not the kind you've been developing. Let me take you back 200,000 years to the African savanna. You're part of a hunter-gatherer tribe. Survival is brutal. Mates are scarce. In that environment, what kind of competence would a woman's brain be evolved to detect quickly and reliably? Not your ability to debug code. Not your skill at financial modeling. Those are important, but they're modern skills that didn't exist for 99.9% of human evolutionary history. What her brain was evolved to detect: social dominance. Can he navigate tribal politics? Will my children inherit status? Physical capability. Can he hunt, defend, provide security, resource control? Does he have access to food, shelter, protection? Coalition support. Do other people respect him? Will they help him? Emotional stability. Will he stay calm under pressure? Can he lead? Notice what all of these have in common. They're immediately observable through behavior and social dynamics. You can watch someone navigate a group and assess their social dominance in minutes. You can see their physical capability and emotional regulation in real time. You can observe who defers to them and who seeks their approval. But you can't see someone's Python programming skills. You can't observe their financial planning expertise. You can't feel their strategic thinking ability. Those competencies are incredibly valuable for System 2 evaluation, for long-term partnership, for building a stable life together. But they do almost nothing for initial attraction because they're invisible to the ancient detection mechanisms that still govern our mating psychology. This is why the guy who's good with people often outcompetes the guy who's good at things, even when the second guy is objectively more competent in ways that matter for long-term success. There's a second layer to this paradox, and it's even more frustrating: status legibility. Status legibility means how easy is it for someone to understand your value without specialized knowledge. Let's compare two men. Man A is a staff engineer at Google. He makes $400,000 a year. He's solved problems that affected billions of users. In his professional domain, he's elite. Man B is a personal trainer. He makes $60,000 a year. He helps people lose weight and build muscle. In his professional domain, he's competent but not elite. Now, who has higher legible status in most social contexts? The trainer. Every single time. Why? Because everyone understands what a personal trainer does. They can see the results. His physique, they can imagine what it's like to work with him. His value is immediately legible to anyone he meets. The Google engineer's value, completely opaque unless you're also in tech. Most people have no idea what a staff engineer is. They don't understand the complexity of the problems he solves. They can't visualize his impact. His status is illegible to most social contexts. And here's the kicker. In dating contexts, illegible status might as well not exist. This is why doctors and lawyers used to have such an advantage in dating. Their status was culturally legible. Everyone knew what doctor meant. The TV shows, the social narratives, the cultural scripts all conveyed, this person is high status. But modern knowledge work, software engineering, data science, financial analysis, research science, these are incredibly high status, high competence fields, but their status illegible to most people. So you end up with this brutal scenario. You're objectively high value, but nobody can perceive it in the context where attraction gets established. Marcus, our engineer from earlier, had incredibly high actual status. But in the social environments where he met women, coffee shops, hiking groups, dating apps, that status was completely invisible. Meanwhile, men with lower actual status but higher legible status, the bartender, the musician, the fitness instructor, were triggering System 1 constantly. The third element of the competence paradox is what I call the social proof deficit. Becoming truly excellent at something requires an insane amount of focused solitary work, 10,000 hours, deep practice, deliberate skill development, and here's the problem: all of that happens in isolation. While you were mastering your craft, what were you not doing? Building a large, active social network, creating shared experiences with diverse groups, developing a reputation in multiple social contexts, generating stories that others tell about you, cultivating casual friendships that create ambient social proof. In other words, while you were becoming competent at your skill, you were not becoming competent at generating the social proof signals that trigger System 1 attraction. This is why competent men often report feeling invisible in social settings. It's not that they're unlikable. It's not that they're socially incompetent in an absolute sense. It's that they lack the social proof infrastructure that makes attraction possible in modern contexts. Think about Jake, our insurance salesman/musician. His competence is lower in absolute terms, but his social proof infrastructure is massive. He performs in front of crowds. Dozens of people watch him create value. He has bandmates, coalition support. He has fans, pre-selection signal. He has regular social rituals, band practice, gigs, post-show hangouts. He has stories that others tell about him. You should see Jake's band. They're amazing. All of that creates a social proof ecosystem that makes him attractive to System 1 before he even opens his mouth. Marcus, he had none of that. His work was invisible. His achievements were solo. His social circle was small and professionally homogeneous. His weekends were quiet, high competence, zero social proof. And in the brutal calculus of modern mating markets, social proof beats competence almost every time, at least in the initial attraction phase. Okay, so if you're listening to this and recognizing yourself in Marcus's story, you're probably feeling pretty frustrated right now. Good, that means you're paying attention. But here's the part where this gets useful. The competence paradox is solvable. You don't have to abandon your expertise. You don't have to become someone you're not. But you do need to add 3 things to your existing foundation. First, make your competence legible. You need to translate your value into contexts where people can actually perceive it. For Marcus, this meant starting a YouTube channel where he explained complex tech concepts simply, legibility plus social proof, teaching a weekend workshop at a local community center, status visibility, writing about his work in accessible language on Medium, narrative legibility. Within 6 months, his dating experience completely changed, not because his competence increased, but because it became visible. Your action step: identify one way to make your expertise visible to non-experts. Teaching, content creation, community involvement, pick one and commit to 90 days. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to exist. The goal isn't to become an influencer. The goal is to create contexts where your value becomes observable to people outside your professional bubble. Second, build orthogonal social proof. Orthogonal means unrelated to your primary domain. You need social proof that exists outside your area of expertise, because that's where you'll meet potential partners. For Marcus, this meant joining a recreational volleyball league, new social circle, physical activity, regular ritual, hosting a monthly dinner party for friends and their friends, demonstrating social hosting competence, volunteering with a local urban farming project, diverse social context, visible contribution. None of this made him better at engineering, but all of it built the social proof infrastructure that his competence alone couldn't create. Your action step: join one regular social activity that has nothing to do with your career. Something with mixed gender groups, regular attendance, and shared goals. It could be a sports league, a book club, a volunteer organization, a hiking group, anything where you see the same people repeatedly and contribute something visible. The key is consistency. One-off events don't build social proof. You need to show up regularly enough that people start associating you with that context. You need to become that guy who always brings good wine to book club, or that guy who organized the volunteer cleanup. These become the stories people tell about you, the social proof that travels before you arrive. Third, develop emotional impact skills. This is the hardest one because it's the most foreign to competence-oriented men. Emotional impact means, can you make someone feel something in the moment? Not through your resume, not through explaining your achievements, but through presence, storytelling, playfulness, tension, and connection. For Marcus, this meant taking an improv class, learning to be present and spontaneous. Working with a therapist on emotional expression, learning to share vulnerability. Practicing storytelling, learning to create emotional arcs, not just convey information. This was uncomfortable. It felt fake at first, but here's what he learned. Emotional impact is a skill, just like engineering. It can be learned. The men who are naturally good with women, they're not magical. They've just been practicing emotional impact skills since childhood. Through play, socialization, trial and error. You can learn these skills too. It just requires the same deliberate practice approach you use to develop your competence. Your action step: take one class or join one group focused on emotional expression. Improv, theater, public speaking, dance, or even group therapy. Commit to 8 weeks minimum. Yes, it will feel awkward at first. Yes, you'll be bad at it initially, but that's how skill development works. You already know this. You've been bad at things before and gotten good through practice. This is no different. What you're really learning here is how to access and express the emotional range that most competent men have systematically suppressed in order to focus on their craft. You're not becoming someone else. You're reclaiming parts of yourself that got pruned during your competence development years. Here's what I want you to understand. Your competence is not worthless. It's just incomplete. System 2 value, long-term compatibility, stability, shared vision matters enormously. The right partner will care deeply about your competence. They'll respect what you've built, they'll appreciate your dedication and skill, but you have to survive the System 1 filter first. That requires status legibility, making your value visible, social proof infrastructure, building connection ecosystems, emotional impact skills, learning to make people feel. The good news? You already know how to develop mastery. You've done it once in your career domain. You can do it again in the social emotional domain. It just requires the same ingredients: humility, practice, feedback loops, and time. You're not starting from zero. You have transferable skills. Pattern recognition, systems thinking, deliberate practice. You know how to break down complex skills into component parts. You know how to seek feedback and iterate. Apply those same meta skills to social proof and emotional impact, and you'll progress faster than you think. Marcus now, he's in a long-term relationship with someone who respects both his engineering brilliance and his social presence. Because he didn't abandon his competence, he just made it visible and surrounded it with the social proof that modern mating markets require. You can do the same. The competence paradox is real. Evolution didn't prepare us for a world where the most valuable skills are invisible to ancient attraction mechanisms. We're running software that's 200,000 years old in a world that was built in the last 50 years. That mismatch creates predictable problems, but awareness is the first step, and action is the second. You now understand why your competence alone hasn't been enough. You understand the three systems that govern initial attraction, status legibility, social proof infrastructure, and emotional impact. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you file it away as interesting but uncomfortable information and continue doing what you've always done? Or will you treat this like any other skill gap you've encountered in your competence journey and systematically close it? If this resonated with you, here's your homework. Identify one way to make your competence legible this month. Join one orthogonal social activity this week. Sign up for one emotional impact skill class this quarter. Do those three things, and 6 months from now, you'll be telling a very different story. Not because you became less competent, not because you abandoned who you are, but because you learned to make your value visible, built the social proof infrastructure that modern contexts require, and developed the emotional impact skills that trigger System 1 attraction. Your competence will still be there, deeper and more refined than ever. But it'll finally be surrounded by the context that allows others to perceive it. Thanks for listening to Primal Mind. If you found this valuable, subscribe and share it with one friend who needs to hear this. Until next time, stay strategic, stay intentional, and remember, competence is the foundation, but connection is the bridge.